perked up when they have the data, the information. Kim got something to happen by sending statistics to somebody, and then it seems like what numbers and zeros got put on paper because of that kind of a pitch. Other people, we hear their stories, or we see they're moved by something like seeing that visual, seeing the lady who has no teeth, and they recognize her from years being there. The capital campaigns that I've been on have mostly been through not-for-profits, and especially at church. And in certain settings, we have, like we have here in Spokane, or in when we have People Who Care events, you'll have lots of different constituencies. And some people are very finance-oriented in statistics. Some people are very heart, passion-oriented. Other people are really practical. And I noticed this in church settings, that it has to be the message 4 or 5 different ways to catch the interest of those different people. But it's only one campaign, so there has to be some way of saying the message or having that piece. If it's visual, or if it's musical, or if it's something, it has to incorporate kind of the head and the heart and the emotional and the spiritual and the financial and the intellectual all in one, and which makes it very difficult. But some of the ones where I've been involved in church, and usually at a much, really behind the scenes level, I'm not the one who goes out and does the big ask. It was hard enough for me as a pastor to be there with the plates, and I would suggest to church councils, let's make the plates bigger. We need the plates to be bigger. And that was, whoa! But then one time we had a capital campaign in a church, and it was mainly to replace a completely dying furnace system. So it needed to raise $50,000, and it was suggested, we had a team of people helping me, but we did baskets like they do sometimes at Black Church, where it's a deep basket, so you can't really see what goes into it, and nothing flies out at the top. It goes into a deeper basket, so you're not giving a visual of filling it up. But we had said to people ahead of time that we were going to pass those baskets, and they were unusual for people in the church to see a basket instead of a flat plate where they could put their $5 or their little envelope. But then we had forewarned. We said we're going to send the baskets out, and we'll bring them back, and we're going to put them on the altar, and then we will, with music playing, we will count what's there, and we'll see what's there, and then we'll send them out again. We'll send those baskets out again if we don't have enough.
Really?
And people were put on notice about that at church, and they brought their friends, and they were thinking, oh my God, if those baskets come back, I'll be so embarrassed. So they made their initial, final, best, great, generous donation first. So we didn't have to send these giant baskets out again. One of the things I've noticed in capital campaigns where church folks, when people are of different constituencies, is everybody still likes a celebration. They like to know what's going on, and they like to know that they've been successful. Even if it's still incremental, you still have a ways to go. One of the things I noticed at church capital campaign things, something that was very practical. If you, like we've done sometimes at the auction, we've just told people, we need an ice maker. We need an ice maker. Will you fund an ice maker? They have something there. That's something they can visualize. One church needed carpet. And so carpet was something everybody used every day. Carpet was there fraying. There were areas where we could practically put memorial plaques where Hazel or Bertha or Myrtle had fallen because the carpet was getting so frayed and so dangerous. So instead of doing a thermometer type thing, we did footprints, how far we were going to get there. And here was this frayed carpet, and we had pictures of tennis shoes, we had pictures of stilettos, we had pictures how far along the hallway up to the altar we got with footprints. Because it made no sense to do the thermometer, right, getting that. But there were people who related more to a sneaker or to a work boot than they did a stiletto, but the idea that each one was worth something. And we could see we were getting closer and closer to it. And then we did that with any information. Say, this is what we're looking for, this is how close we are, this is how much time we have. But, and people, I think, like to be involved in some of the decisions, and the decisions on the celebration or on the kind of, I don't know, the one thing that I noticed was difficult, when it's something as mundane as carpet at a church, really, that is quite mundane, but it's any place that you have to replace this after a while. It got down to the choices, that now we've got the money, and now we're going to do the choice of carpet. And then you have people, and then you give several choices, and I, as a pastor, I would give them choices that I thought I might be able to live with. And there were 3 choices, and then it's like, no, where's the color I want? And then the color they wanted was the same damn color that had been on the floor before, which was this bright red. And it was like, because that was what was on sale in 1954. And so those were not the choices that I was giving them, but just to be, I don't know, just diplomatic about it, that no, thank you for your input, but silence now, unclean spirit. You will not get the choice in this.
Devil get thee behind me.
Exactly. The other
I think about carpet.
Carpet is necessary. The other thing I noticed in capital campaigns that, especially when there's been great success, I know we're going to have great success because we're going to come at this in a great way. I remember being at the table where it was a stewardship campaign in a church in San Diego, and the money was to build a new education building. And I was the chair of stewardship, mine was really behind the scenes. But I sat at the table, a celebration table, with people who were very involved with mission. So they were very, like, education and go overseas, help with water, very mission oriented. And then there were people who were like CEOs of banks, and we were at the same table. And as the meal was offered, it's a meal in church with hundreds of people celebrating, it was a nice meal. It was a nice meal. But it was a church meal. You know, a church meal is, it's either going to be ham and potatoes, or it's going to be chicken and rice.
Jell-O.
Right? Yes, and Jell-O salad. But I was perfectly content to be sitting at the table with these folks, and somebody else had cooked it. But the people at the table, the one person who was very involved with mission, and she had helped raise the money too, she had said, "This is ridiculous. Why are we spending money on a meal like this when we could have saved the money to put toward the campaign?" The bank CEO had said, "What are you talking about? This looks like a meal, this looks like our fundraising meal, for, like we weren't successful. Where's the steak?"
Right.
It was that kind of a disconnect, even though we had been successful. And so I just think everyone in some way has to be satisfied, but not all voices are going to be equal. And as long as we keep the mission ahead of us and keep that in front of people and very transparently, there's going to have to be satisfaction of a lot of those different constituencies. And like church folks,
They're the toughest.
they're the toughest, exactly. I want to
I don't know. Yeah. Well, great. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit. I will say that we had arranged for a speaker to come in the afternoon to talk a little bit about how we're going to get our messaging together. And the presenter is really familiar with transitions, and the company is contemplating what kind of gift they're going to make to the capital campaign, and it was this really great meeting. And then she had a family member pass away, or rather was in the hospital, I should say, in California, and very ill, so she had to jump on a plane. And then she had 2 other staff members that she asked to fill in. Neither was able to. And then asked someone even out of her company to come in who specializes in the same field, and her kids are playing soccer from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So she was like, "I could come, but it would have to be in the morning, and I need to leave by noon." And I was like, "Yeah, no, I already have speakers set up for the morning." So instead, now you get me. And I'm super passionate about the mission and ready to help us build our message. So I will tell you that last night I gave myself a crash course in what we were about to cover, and gosh, I'm ready to go. So
on the agenda, just to be clear, am I losing your mind? You are now Rainmaker.
I am now a Rainmaker.
We are on Explain It to Your Grandma.
Yes, we are going to explain it to our grandma. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, one of the ideas that's popular in marketing is niche marketing or niche marketing, depending on if you grew up on the East Coast or the West
Or
Coast.
took French.
Yeah, we're to French, so I'm gonna say niche because I'm from New Jersey and that's how we roll. So you feel free to call it whatever you want, and I'm gonna say niche. There you go. So niche marketing is the idea of what makes us unique and special, and who is our niche market? Who are we trying to get to buy in to this project specifically? So you've had the opportunity to hear about transitions as a whole, and then we started to narrow it down, right? So then we talked about we first talked about our history, then we talked about our current structure, and then we talked about this program specifically and the reason why it exists. So we brought you down from a big top of the funnel picture and then helped you narrow it down. The first sheet that you have in your afternoon packet has some colored numbers on the front of it, and I think it goes 1 through 5 on the front. This was developed, 1 through 6 on the front. Ow, tough crowd. This was our grant writer, or private grant writer's attempt at creating her niche. So when she looked at this project and tried to funnel it down to the tightest that she could, this was her niche. This is what she developed as her document. So I'm going to give you just a couple minutes to kind of look that over. And I'm going to get my water bottle. So as you're looking at that document, hopefully you feel in some ways that it's a condensed way to answer each one of those categories. If you have had the pleasure of meeting our private grant writer, Carlene, you'll know that she is a little bit amazing, but is really in love with her nerdy data side. She's very data driven. So every once in a while I have to remind her that the outcome of the project is actually those families or those individuals who are going to move into the house, not the actual housing as the outcome for the project, which I think is what we're kind of touching base on. Having that money slide at the end, it really just looked like it's just about this money, not about the services or the outcome or those families. So even sometimes I miss the mark on that too, right? So really bringing things down in a way that you can simplify it for yourself or in your own mind. So at the outset, it's good to think about what is the really broad spectrum that transitions covers. So you can think that transitions is about homelessness. You can think that transitions is about women. You can think transitions is about children. You can think that transitions is about poverty. You can think that transitions is just about transitional points in life. You could have this really wide understanding of what transitions is about. And then as we get towards the programs that we do, then hopefully you'll understand that our mission statement, kind of bringing it down one level in the funnel, is to end poverty and homelessness for women and children in Spokane specifically. And then taking it one more level down the funnel is then saying, so to do that, we're going to build 24 houses, right? So that's taking us further down the funnel. Then it's good to think about, well then who does that appeal to? So who might be the person that we're going to say, oh, well we know for sure that this is our market. And before you go today, you'll get, or in your packet now, you have a list of people who are current supporters of transitions. And so that really broad kind of idea are people with expendable dollars. And I have awesome handwriting, so you're welcome. Generally people who in some way have a rich spiritual or religious life of their own. It might not be Catholic, it might be Christian, it might be atheist, and they just know you have to do right by people. It could be Hindu, and their karma is they want to be housed in all of their future lives, and so they want to provide housing now. So some form of spirituality, or a religious drive, right? And then the other thing that we often will see is people who have a specific interest in just women and children in general. So it might be a feminist spin, it might be I was raised by a single mother, it might be when I had my daughter, my life changed, but whatever it is, there's some kind of female characteristic in their life that they like. So that's kind of the broad spectrum again of what our market looks like. Then as you come down in that funnel, the next level of the funnel is,
Quick question around
yeah.
the market, you're including corporate also in that?
Yes, and then even with our corporations, we've seen this to be true. Yeah, this is the same pattern that we have. So then as the funnel comes down further again, we've seen that most often someone has had an experience of homelessness or a tragedy or trauma in their own life, which helps them connect to the women and children that we serve. And then if you take it down one more time again, they tend to also give to causes that support women and children. So they may not have necessarily given to a cause that had a spiritual or religious base, but most often they've given to a cause that supported women and children before. So that kind of helps us to kind of funnel down, right? So we know who to look for. The really big perk to being at Transitions is that it's a well-established program in the community. We're not starting from scratch. We have a wide breadth of donors who, some of whom have given since 1986 when Miriam's House opened. We have a really strong base of pledge supporters, so people who make a long-term financial commitment to us. Cindy is actually a great example of that. I felt comfortable asking Cindy to come and present today with no payment, mind you, because she pledges to Transition. She makes a monthly gift to Transition, so I knew I could go to her and she would go, yeah, I know all about your mission and I love what you're doing, and by the way, could I come for an extra hour or two because I want to hear more deeply about your program. So we've got an existing example of our niche. People in this room are an existing example of our niche, right? It's no mistake, all 5 of us, it's no mistake that Becky was here. Yes, that's right. But it's no mistake that Becky was here, right? So when we look back over the history of Transitions and we look, who brought people into the mission, who brought people and got them deeply involved, Becky is one of those people. She's awesome at going out and helping to get people down into the bottom of this funnel, getting them down into the people who are going to go, I love your niche and I want to be part of it. So what I want to spend some time doing is having you come up with what is your niche with this project? What do you love about this project? And I'll tell you that I'm an ultra emotionally sensitive person, so should I begin to cry during this conversation, don't take it personally. But I take my job super seriously, but I also like to have some fun with it. And if you've ever been to Bon Bon, it's at the Garland, and it's a really lovely, quiet spot where you can craft a cocktail. And I decided to have a glass of wine at Bon Bon and read the feasibility study. I felt like I really needed to get the feasibility study in my brain. And I couldn't do it in the office, and if I'm at home, my cat's gonna walk on it, and just the whole thing. And I read through the feasibility study, and I was like, wow, like these are a lot of numbers, and I don't know if we're gonna go with budget A, and I don't know if we're gonna go with budget B, and I don't. And for me, it boiled down to everyone deserves a home. And for some people, the best home is going to be in a large community. And for some people, the best home is going to be in their own private house. And for some people, the best home is in an apartment complex, and whatever that is. But in Spokane, there are not enough homes for families to move into. And I've had the opportunity to connect with women and children that we serve and to see them on the day they're moving out and just see how terrified they are and to think how sad they are to leave the Transitions family. So for me, the funnel, the bottom of this funnel for me is that everyone deserves a home. And that's it. If I had to call my grandma right now and ask her to invest in this project, I would say, Grandma, I want you to invest in this because I know everyone deserves a home. And then I might need to tell her more about the project, right? We're gonna have 24 houses. Yes, they're gonna have support services. Yes, the therapy animals will have a place to pee. I mean, whatever somebody wants to ask you about it, you need to have that big picture too. But you need to know what this point of the funnel is for you. Because even if you're not going to do a dollar ask, even if you need Edie or I to sit next to you and say, and now I'd like to ask you to make a $10,000 pledge for the next 3 years, someone's going to connect to you saying your funnel.